Hey, folks. For the four people that may be watching us, um, so hey, this is something new we're trying with the ACDC. Never really done one of these before. We've done the happy hours, but we've never taken a moment and just sort of talked about ourselves. And this may seem like incredibly self indulgent, but we're gonna try this once and see how it goes, and give you guys a chance to ask a bunch of questions as we go. Um, but just wanted to take a minute and talk about ourselves for a sec, because we've got a lot of folks over the years that the Dragoons have been around that kind of engage with us in one particular way or another, but not necessarily in more than one. And we wanted to talk to folks a little bit about sort of the breadth of the things that we do, and and kind of let folks see that. So yeah, you can put a face with the dog. But Fred, it's not like I haven't been on video over the last 2.5 years of doing this stuff. But again, this just goes back to the point of Fred is a dedicated podcast listener, but probably doesn't necessarily engage with us as much in other places that the Dragoons have. So that's kind of what we want to do tonight. Is just, yeah, it's a little bit self-indulgent talking about ourselves, but that's never stopped us, and so why not? So a quick agenda, sort of how we got here. How did the Dragoons end up where we are at this point doing our thing, and some of the cool stuff that our guys do. And I was hoping to have a few of them on camera with me tonight to be able to talk about their stuff. But what the heck? We're gonna pump them up a little bit anyway, and then we're gonna talk some about what's coming up next. Where the Dragoons are going from here. So how we got here? Look, we were founded in August of 2018. A bunch of us all have experience running or being parts of other communities around the web, and when we first launched that little block of text that you're seeing right there, that's what we had on our front page, just sort of talking about this is a community. There are places that treat themselves kind of as online magazines. There are some that are primarily YouTube channels. There's actually a bunch of those, and a bunch of really good ones. There are other places that are just podcasts or just blogs or whatever. We've tried to take a very holistic approach to things, and so that's really what we're after. So we were founded in August of 2018. Our forums opened a couple of days later. The podcast and Saturday Night Fights both launched in November of 2018. Our first origins as the Dragoons was in 2019. Again, those of you that have been around for a while know that we've been running the wargaming program at Origins under different names over many years. And some of that Origins program actually grew out of stuff that we'd done going back to 2007-ish with things that we used to do with the Origins War College as well. So this has been going on for quite a while, but we collected it all under the Dragoons banner in 2019, which was the first Origins after we were founded. Our first digital convention was in the summer of 2020. This is now our fourth digital wargaming convention. So we've been doing this a bit. So something that makes us different, and this is where I think the Dragoons really kind of stick out, and where I'm pretty proud of some of the things that we've done over the last couple of years. We've got multiple ways that folks can engage with us, a variety of different ways in which folks can participate in our community. We also, there are wargaming sites that are board wargaming sites or computer wargaming sites, or just professional practitioner focused things, or just hobby focused things. Look, if it's a war game, we're happy to talk about it. If you're talking digital war games, console war games, mobile war games, if you're talking on the tabletop, whether it's minis, whether it's digital implementations of tabletop games, we stretch the boundaries of just wargaming a little bit as well, in that we look at strategy games in the large. We've got a big 4X fandom amongst our forum goers that we've regularly got multiple Civilization play-by-cloud games going online with a bunch of us all in them together. So that's some place where we've taken a very big tent approach to the games that we want to talk about. Now, I know some of y'all are thinking, wait a minute, you guys just did a whole bunch of podcasts on what's the definition of a war game. Yes, we are war game focused, but we are not war game exclusive. And I think that's one of the things that sort of helps us stick out a little bit. We're going to talk some role-playing stuff. We're going to talk some 4X stuff. We're going to talk a variety of different tabletop strategy games that, again, the core bread and butter is wargaming, but not exclusively. But one of the other things we do is we really want to talk about and focus on and cater to that overlap between the hobby and the professional world. The national security guys, whether they're DOD or in the intel community or Department of State or wherever, there's a lot of pretty cool wargaming stuff that happens in the professional world, some of which they're even allowed to talk about publicly. And so we want to get those guys more involved with our hobby communities and vice versa. We would like our hobby guys to be able to cross-pollinate some into the professional communities. But ultimately, our biggest thing is we're about enabling gameplay. How can we help you guys get the most out of your gaming? And that's really what we're after here. So to that end, we got multiple ways to engage. We've got our forums. We've got over 300 members in the forums that are registered for the forums right now. Not all those folks necessarily play in the sandbox a bunch, but we've got a bunch that do. And that's not a huge number with the forums, but again, with that being only one way in which folks can engage with us, that's fine. We're not one of those places that if you don't jump in the forums, that's the only way in which you're going to be able to participate with us. We're fine engaging wherever the audience is. We're going to meet the audience where the audience is. That said, there's a lot of great discussion that goes on in our forums, a lot of interesting conversation, some great AARs that folks post, and we do a lot of game organizing in the forums as well. We're pretty active on social media, more so than some other places that are also very forum centric. We've got a pretty active Twitter feed. We've got our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is essentially a retransmission of the site contents, but we do as members of the community also talk quite a bit. Jim Ozarski is very active in the tabletop simulator groups in Facebook. We've got a variety of our folks that are active in the wargamer groups, the board wargamer groups, some of the others. Our Discord is pretty active. We've got a dedicated Dragoons Discord, as well as the ones that we stand up for the conventions. We also pop into other people's. We crash other folks' parties on a regular basis. And our YouTube channel is not as active as those of some of our members. We'll talk about some of those in a second, but we're perfectly happy being involved on YouTube with folks. And more than a few times we've shown up on other people's shows as well. We've shown up with Gary and Mo and Kev and some of the others on their shows, and happy to do that. So again, social media is a great place that we can engage with a lot of other folks in the community. And it goes back to how wide we're willing to cast the net for the Dragoons. We've been wanting to do live events all along. You're at one of them right now. We were actually working on the plans for a live in-person Dragoons convention when the plague hit. And that's sort of how the virtual Dragoons assembly came about way back in the in the summer of 2020. We were planning a Dragoons assembly earlier in that year. Plague hit. Crap, can't do this. So let's see what we can do virtually. And we were able to pull one off and have a good time with it. I have a space heater right behind me that's sort of roasting my back. So I got to adjust it every now and then. We do a bunch of streaming with Saturday Night Fights, with some of our talk shows, with some of the other things that we do where we are frequently appearing on a variety of different kinds of streams, sometimes just for fun, sometimes planned and organized, not often, right? Let's be honest. But we are happy to engage with folks in a streaming format as well. And then our podcast, again, Fred's a fan of the podcast. We're at 83 episodes so far. We can't wait to hit 100 so we can go into syndication and we can start showing up on a digital television sub channel near you at some point. We'll see when we get there. Again, that overlap between the hobby and professional wargaming space, that's one that's kind of important to us, and one where we definitely want to play ball. We've had a variety of podcast episodes with the practitioners on them. We regularly get the students from the Command and General Staff College out at Fort Leavenworth, from the Wargame Design program out there. A couple of those guys presented here at this weekend's convention, but we also get those folks show up on the podcast pretty regularly. We've had some of the folks from Georgetown, from the Georgetown University Wargaming Society show up. We've had other college instructors who teach wargaming or teach game design as a part of their curriculum have shown up on our podcast. We've had folks from the Air Force talking, Colonel Matt Caffrey came on and talked about his book on wargaming when it got published. We've had other folks like Rex Brynan show up and talk about some of the professional and practitioner approaches that they take to wargaming. So that's definitely a place where we like to bring those voices in and have some conversation with them. We were co-sponsors of Connections Online, and we're going to continue to do that. We'll talk shortly about the one coming up here soon. Connections is a professional focused convention conference. It's much more of a presentation focused conference than it is a gameplay focused convention, but we do want to bring a bunch of gameplay into it to allow the practitioners to get a sense of the breadth of the hobby and what do we have within the hobby world to offer them for gameplay and game design ideas that they can pillage and use. We've had a variety of practitioner focused articles over the years, some columns, some prescriptive, here's how to do certain things, some different interviews with people over the years. So again, we write articles focused towards this group, and we always want to make sure we invite the professionals to our hobby events. Again, we've had some of the Georgetown folks and some of the Fort Leavenworth folks show up this weekend. We're hoping that we can expand that and maybe eventually bring in some of the West Point cadets. Maybe we bring in some of the Naval Academy midshipmen. Maybe we find folks doing game design work at some other colleges and universities out there that we can bring in, like the folks at King's College in London. Get those guys involved. We would like to get more of those folks engaged in the community here. So, enabling gameplay. Look, this is one of the key tenets of the Armchair Dragoons. We want to help folks play games. We organize all kinds of stuff in our forums. Some of them are just vassal meetups to sit down and play with a couple of folks. We've got some pretty long-running forum organized play-by-email Kriegspiels going on. Saturday Night Fights gets organized in our forums. We've got a couple of different folks who have designed some rule sets that have been looking for play testers in our forums. Sponsoring and organizing live events, helping people find opponents, just advice on game searches. We get folks pop up all the time in Twitter or Board Game Geek or wherever. Hey, I'm looking for a game to help out with X, Y, or Z. And we're more than happy to try and help steer some answers to them or steer some experts to them to help get good answers for those folks. But again, it's all about how can we help you get the most out of playing your games? Because ultimately, that's what it's all about. Let's get some games played. So some of the cool stuff that our guys do. We've got Saturday Night Fights and some of the other live streams. We've got My Own Worst Enemy and that program that we've got. Tuesday Newsday has gotten a lot of attention lately just because some people have talked about it on some podcasts and some of their like company email newsletters and stuff. We've got our podcast. We've got the event calendar that we'll talk about here in a second. And look, the ACDC, right? We're at it right now. So Saturday Night Fights, these things started being organized by Grognard of the Year for 2021, Jim Ozarski. I do want to take a half a moment here and acknowledge that Jim was the Grognard of the Year for, I guess it was for 2020. He was awarded it in 2021. He has been dethroned. No Enemies Here. The video that just dropped, I believe today, but hours ago, the new Grognard of the Year was Ardwolf. Gary Mengel, our good buddy, has been selected. So applause all around for our buddy Gary. Is now the new Grognard of the Year. But Jim was, very deservedly selected as Grognard of the Year over, in 2020 for his support of and evangelizing online gameplay using Tabletop Simulator for folks to keep their wargaming going during the pandemic. But Saturday Night Fights wasn't a reaction to the pandemic. It was something that we were doing for quite some time before that. We've got a couple of podcast episodes about this. It's pretty cool. We've got over 140 episodes of Saturday Night Fights stuff just on our site. If you go to Jim's YouTube page and go take a look, he's got 300 and some odd video, live streams where they had live streamed it. Basically, they set up Tabletop Simulator, they start a game, and Jim hits play and broadcasts to the world. And they'll talk back to you through the YouTube streams. We stream on Saturdays and we post those to our site. Jim is usually playing on most Wednesdays, a lot of Thursdays, and sometimes picks up whatever other day. If he and his son sit down and play a Commands and Colors game using Tabletop Simulator so they don't have to take over the dining room table, Jim's going to hit go and broadcast that as well. So you're going to get a lot of great video gameplay that you can watch through Saturday Night Fights. And that's something that we do a lot of. Those games are organized in our forums. So if it's something you're interested in participating in, you can pop in the forums to do that. I'm seeing some commentary about Chris Weave. Chris was the founder of Connections Online and the primary organizer behind it. Merle, who's producing this show from behind the scenes, Merle and I kind of help with the execution piece of it all, but it was Chris's brainchild from the start. And Chris would have been here this weekend to pitch in for some stuff, but he's away on work. He's stuck in an airport somewhere, but he's off on work, traveling this weekend, and wasn't able to participate with us, which is a bit of a bummer. My Own Worst Enemy. So this is Mike Colello's show that he's been running for quite a while now. He's over 50 episodes. He does solo playthroughs of games. That's why he's his own worst enemy. But one of the cool things that Mike does with his games is he plays them to completion. He doesn't give you 3 or 4 turns on the video. He's playing the whole thing. Sometimes it takes 8 episodes in order to get through the entire game. Doesn't matter. Mike is playing that sucker to the end. And so we've had a couple of different ones. He did Blitz, A World in Conflict. He's done Across 5 Aprils with the P Ridge game. He did one of the VUCA Sims games, the one about Frederick that was one of the first streams that he'd done. So we've got a whole bunch of different games that you can watch Mike play his way through, talk through some of the ideas and strategy, talk through some of the rules pieces as well. Tuesday News Day. So I'm the guy compiling this thing. This started back 2020. It's been a continuous evolution. It's a lot of different headers in there, but essentially what we're focused on with those is what can I do? Like what can I actually do with this news? And that's something that I field occasional comments from people. Hey, how come you didn't talk about this new announcement? Well, because it was an announcement, right? Yay, somebody's working on a game that might get released by 2025. Like, so what do I do with that information? Like, hey, who knows? So we want to focus on games you can buy, games you can pre-order. Here's actual information of stuff that you can do. And that's something that we've really tried to focus on with that column. So we're going to give you some news. Hey, this is something interesting happening about this company, or hey, these guys have said, when MMP had to cancel Winter Offensive, for instance, we needed to include that so folks knew what was going on the convention circuit. Back in November, when there were 4 conventions all on the same weekend, hey, that's kind of cool. We've got a bunch of live conventions all happening at the same time. Let's talk about that. We do include bullets in there that are focused towards the professional and practitioner communities. So the Georgetown University Wargaming Society webinar series, we will let you know what's coming up on those. We will let you know what we on our show over the past week, 2 weeks, whatever. We talk about what's on sale this week, right? We're going to help you spend your money. Somebody mentioned, for a cheap convention here at the ACDC, it's actually gotten pretty expensive with all the games they've ordered. Good. That's a good thing. One of the key things with Tuesday News Day, although I am the guy compiling it all, we've got multiple contributors that all pitch into that. And it's great having those folks help out by sending us information to include in Tuesday News Day, because we can't see everything. Try, but can't necessarily. So mentioned in dispatches, this is our podcast. We started recording within weeks of setting up the community. It just took us a little bit of time to edit it all together and get it out there. We held a contest to pick the name. It was actually Ozarski's nomination. Somebody had actually nominated Pants Are Optional as the podcast title. It almost won in the public voting, but we've had mention in dispatches with the Armchair Dragoons going for the better part of 2.5, 3 years now. One of the key things with this is an intentionally loose structure. The idea behind it all along was if we had a couple of wargamers sitting around a bar and somebody just hit record, what would it sound like? That's us, right? We're going to pick a topic that we'll sort of kind of stick to, but not always. And occasionally barely stick to them. In that respect, we're not unlike Ardwolf's Monday night counter clipping streams, right? We're just, we're going to start in one place and who knows where we'll end up. We run 2 seasons a year, one spring, one fall, roughly 10 episodes each. Sometimes we shoot for a dozen. Sometimes we come in a little high or a little low, but we shoot for around a dozen episodes each. Again, we're at 83 episodes and counting right now. And our next season will start recording once we get past the ACDC. And so February is when you'll start seeing the new episodes show up. All right, our event calendar. Merle, this is when you throw up the link to the event calendar. So this is one of the first pages we set up on our site. We had this pretty cool master calendar that we had pulled up on that we put every possible event we could find on it. If it was a club meeting, it was on there. If it was an organizational something, it was on there. Every convention we could find, we added it. We had meetups from local stores in Texas. The Cabs calendar was on there. If it was subscribable through a Google Calendar, we subscribed to it and we included it on there, to the point where pretty much every day of the week, somewhere in the world, there was an event on that calendar of somebody playing something. And what we wanted was to be as comprehensive as possible. And no one used that page at all. It had maybe like 12 hits during the first 6 months we were open. Nobody was using it. So we just sort of shrugged and figured, all right, this isn't something people are actually interested in, and we left it alone. And then it didn't matter because it was a plague, and like nobody could actually get together face to face to do anything anyway. But now that things are loosening up some and conventions are starting to happen, we've had Origins, we've had PAX, we've had Gen Con, we've had Compass, we've had whatever other conventions we've had over the past couple years, or over the past year and a half or so. There's been a renewed interest in that event calendar. And so we started it back up. So now you can go hit that event calendar. You can subscribe to it through Google Calendars if you choose. But we've also got the grid down below that's just conventions. In addition to that, we've got a form on there where you can submit convention events that we can get added to that calendar. Right now, there's 3 or 4 of them that people have submitted that are waiting for me to add to the calendar. Please check and make sure it's not already there before you submit it. I had about 4 different people all submit BattleTechs down in Texas to me. We only need it once. Once is good. Once I've got it on the calendar, we're good. We don't need it anymore. But there was a bunch of social media discussion looking for that giant sync matrix of convention calendars. So we dusted it off and updated it and added more stuff to it. And here we go. We're going to try and keep it going for you guys as we go. Not soon enough. Sorry, Fred. Look, man, I'll get it to you, man. The podcast will get back when it gets back. We had a convention to run. All right, so here we are. Speaking of conventions, we had the ACDC going here. This is our 4th digital wargaming convention. We had the original Dragoons Assembly. We had the ACDC this weekend last year. We had one last summer, and then we got this one. The one last summer was always intended as a one-off. It was in June, the weekend that Origins was originally scheduled to happen. Since Origins moved out of that weekend, we parked an extra digital convention on that weekend. Our plan is to hold the ACDC as a digital convention every year on MLK weekend. Anybody in Europe watching this, that's in the middle of January. We're going to do it on a holiday weekend, so we've got a little more breathing room to do everything that folks don't have to rush around after the convention to get back to regular life. We like to focus on designer-led games as much as possible. We're going to go get the designers to come teach them to you. Ryan Heilman's doing White Eagle Defiant today. David Thompson had Landsworth Ridge. Tim Densham's running around here teaching his Judean Hammer game. Sebastian Bay and FMF. We bring the designers in. Bruce Maxwell's doing the NATO game tomorrow morning. We're going to bring the designers in whenever we can to get them to help show off those games. We're going to try some new things. We're going to experiment with some crazy ideas as a part of the convention. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. This is one of those experiments. No idea if this keynote kind of thing is going to be worth continuing in the future. We're going to give it a try and see what happens. One of the things that we tried this time around as a bit of an experiment, we brought in a GM to do the Twilight 2000 game. We're not going to go turn it into a role-playing convention or anything, but why not bring in a military-themed role-playing game just to give it a whirl? A lot of folks were big fans of T2K back in its original incarnation, so let's try it. Turned out from the participants' feedback, it was a pretty positive experience. They really enjoyed it. So that's great. We're happy to try and experiment with some things like that. We also want to showcase a lot of the smaller publishers and smaller projects out there, some new projects out there. That's how we ended up with Catastrophe Games as a new publisher, getting highlighted a little bit this time around. That's how we got Dark City Games as one of the key interviews back in June. That's why we had DGS Games involved with us the year before that. We want to bring in some of those smaller publishers, smaller companies, folks that are less prominent in the wargaming space, and give them some attention, give them some love, let them get in front of a larger audience. We've also started doing that a little more on the content creator side. You guys noticed that in the past, it was a pretty steady diet of Gary and Mo as the two primary talk show hosts, and then me showing up, crashing the happy hours. We brought in Justiguard to do the Robotech interview the other night. That was another one of those smaller publisher projects that's a little off the radar for wargamers. We brought those guys in because the Robotech reconstruction game is kind of a cool thing for folks that enjoy asymmetric games like the coin games. It is a coin-inspired system. We wanted to give them a chance to get in front of the wargamers. We've got Blue Tweezers joining us tomorrow. So we're trying to bring in those other content creators to give them an opportunity to get in front of a wider audience as well. No Enemies here, sort of an odd case. Dan was on late last night, but Dan's been on the ACDCs before, so it wasn't a brand new thing for bringing him around. We want to bring in more of these guys and give them a chance to get in front of the crowd. We have the seminar program that goes beyond just the normal talk shows, where we get a chance for some of those college students, some research and history articles, and the NSDM guys tomorrow. Merle, Merle's producing this, but he's going to be on screen tomorrow talking NSDM stuff. We want to give those folks a chance to present to the audience and see what kind of feedback they get as well. All right. Unboxing day. So this is something we do once a month. This is not one of those content filler things. Oh crap, we don't have a Tuesday article. Throw up an unboxing. Like, we're not going to do that kind of stuff. But once a month, when we can consolidate a whole lot of unboxings onto one day, it kind of becomes a bit of an event day. It ends up being a pretty high traffic day for our site as well. It's a chance to see what folks have got and take a look inside the, crack and the shrink on a bunch of different games. We do it all on one day, once each month. Gary pitches in, Mo pitches in. We've averaged over 10 unboxings a month for the past year, usually more. Some video, some just photo galleries. We have a lot of fun with this, and keeping it to one day a month gives everybody kind of one day to get excited for it and see it all. It's almost kind of like Christmas morning, right? Unwrap a ton of presents and then you can move on with your life. But it's been a lot of fun. It happened completely accidentally, where we weren't going to do a lot of unboxing filler content for our site. But suddenly we had about 5 things all show up all at once. And we said, all right, let's, put a whole bunch of them on one day and see what happens. Turned out the audience thought it was kind of cool. The feedback we got was pretty positive. So we decided to keep doing it. It's amazing how often that happens. One of the other things we've got that's a little less well known on our site is we've got a couple of different reference pages floating around on there. There was an initiative at Board Game Geek, I don't know, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Time gets a little fuzzy thanks to the plague these days, right? That they started this giant project to put together a wargamer glossaries and terms document. And that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure didn't just get buried in a BGG thread somewhere. So we asked the guy that compiled it, hey, do you mind if we publish it over on our site? And we did. And we've had some feedback from folks on our site that we've made some updates and tweaks and changes to that glossary of terms and definitions. Look, it's not an official answer. It's not a formal answer. It's just a resource for people to be able to pull some information. We've got a bibliography on a lot of different scholarly articles, a lot of them around game-based learning, but a lot of them are just around gameplay stuff as well. Always happy to accept folks sending us more citations to add to that, just to help folks with that wargaming bibliography as a whole that people might want to, in the course of more formal structured research or academic inquiry, it's a resource that they can use. We've got our convention archives, a lot of live streaming archives, but a lot of records of kind of the events that we'd had for those different the different conventions that we've done over the past couple of years now. And we've got some research papers that we've published on the site, and we would be thrilled to have more of those come in. So if there's anybody in the academic world listening, watching, whether live or after the fact, if you've got students working on research papers that involve research around games or gamers, and it's not something that they're likely to submit to, an academic conference or for any sort of journal publication, we'd still love to have them. Let's get them published and let's get them shared with the wider community, so that we can, these folks put a lot of good work into those papers when they work on them. Let's share them. Let's let other people see them and glean some insights from that research. So, all right. So what's next? Where are the Dragoons going from here? We got a bunch of events lined up. The IKS folks, International Kriegspiel Society, they were doing some Kriegspiels here this weekend. We've been talking with Marshall about co-sponsoring a weekend-long Kriegspiel-focused event coming up sometime late March, early April. As you can see from the rest of this calendar, fitting that in is a little challenging to make sure that we can get it in around all the other things that are going on. But we're looking at helping co-sponsor a Kriegspiel weekend for them. Basically, they're going to do a lot of the game events, and we're going to handle a lot of the back-end piece for them. Washington, assuming it actually happens in person in Washington coming up at the end of March, we're going to try to be there in person. It'll be one of the first times that the Dragoons have made an official appearance as the Dragoons, organizing some events, having some gameplay there. It's going to be one of the first times we've done this outside of Origins ever. Assuming they're still allowed to hold this, that conditions don't dramatically change on the on the infectious disease front, we're going to see about having an official Dragoons presence at Washington. We are co-sponsoring Connections Online again, and the core events are going to be 19 to 21 April. That's the middle of the week right after Easter is when that's being held. The extended events will have a couple of days on either side of that, but that's what we're looking at is 19 to 21 April is when Connections Online is planning to be held, and we're working on the planning for that right now. Origins will be 8 to 12 June this coming summer. We're going to be there. We're planning on having the wargaming program back. We've actually had a whole lot of connections that we've made over this past year to greatly expand that wargaming program. We've got a couple of companies that are wanting to be involved in our wargaming area that we're hoping to be able to offer a much broader array of games and types of games than we have before. One of the things we're going to try is we're going to get a fairly large monster game set up, probably something from the Europa series, and we're going to schedule multiple events for that game throughout the course of the week or the weekend, where you come in and pick up the scenario wherever the previous scenario left off. So if we're doing, the invasion, if we're doing Operation Barbarossa and we're doing the invasion of Russia, the first 4-hour session is going to play a certain number of turns, however far they can get in those 4 hours. And then the next 4-hour session will pick up where they left off. And we're going to have a monster game just as a rolling scenario all weekend long. See how that goes. Mastara Khan. So Mastara Khan is a bit of an oddity for the Dragoons. We're kind of helping them get started. Once they're organized enough that they can stand on their own 2 feet, we're going to exit the program. That is a 100% a role-playing focused convention. The Mastara Game World was the one that was pre-packaged with the old Beckme series D&D games, the Basic Expert Companion Masters Immortals series. It's a community that I'd been involved in a lot over the years. Not as much lately, but quite a bit, especially back in the 90s. And just helping those guys get that Mastara focused convention up and organized and running. We did one back in November. We're going to help them get another one up this coming fall. And I'm hoping that we can sort of hand it over to a committee there to organize and run going forward, that we're not going to have to do quite as much for them. But we wanted to help them get up and get started. And so we're still going to be involved in that one. Again, not any wargaming going on there, but if you're a role-playing person, that might be something of interest to you. Mace happens in November, usually around Veterans Day weekend. It's held in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been trying to get back to Mace for the last couple of years, and the combination of work and pandemic have conspired against that. However, we're going to try and make it this year. There's some uncertainty around what's going to happen with Mace this coming year, simply because there's stuff going on with the founder and owner of the convention. So we're hoping that those things get cleared up, that either he's able to run it or hand it off to someone to run it, that we're hoping to have an official Dragoons presence in Charlotte in November at Mace. We've been saying that for a couple of years, hoping we can actually pull it off this year. So as you can see, we've got a pretty robust schedule of live events going on over the rest of this coming year. So, all right. So this is something kind of cool. This is a new initiative we're starting. Again, folks have been around the Dragoons for a while, know that we're not afraid to try some new stuff. And if it tanks, it tanks, and we don't do it anymore. We tried the Design by Dragoons column for a while, where we just asked a variety of game design questions, got answers from a bunch of different game designers, and kind of put all their answers to that same question together. And it was kind of cool, but some of the designers weren't really into it. It seemed a bit more like a chore for them, and the audience wasn't really into it. So we canned it, right? We gave it a punt, and we moved on to something else. We're going to try this. We're going to see how it goes. And if we end up punting, we'll punt. But we're wanting to spend this year highlighting local game stores that are specifically war game friendly ones. We did our happy hour from Gamers Armory last night, and Gamers Armory is going to be one of the ones that we end up spotlighting, because they are one of the war game friendliest stores in the country. What we've got is we've got a form, and I'll show you here in a second, that collects some basic location contact info. We want you to tell us what's the wargame friendliness like of that store. What kind of wargame inventory do they actually have? Give us some photos of the store. Give us some info about the store. We're going to follow up with the store, contact them, say, hey, somebody nominated you guys for our FLGS spotlight. We want to highlight you guys on the website. Here's what we're planning to do. Can we send you a sign that lets you put up in the store as featured on Armchair Dragoons? And let's give these guys a little bit of love and a little bit of attention. And so what we've got is a form, and Merle, go ahead and throw that link up in the chat there so folks can see. We've got a form that you can go submit your local game store for consideration in our FLGS spotlight. A couple of things around this. One, it's got to be a physical store you can actually walk into. Look, we love Enterprise Games. Nobody will ever doubt our love for Don and those guys at Enterprise Games. They are one of our great partners at Origins every year. You're not allowed to just knock on the door and walk in Don's warehouse and wander around and buy stuff. It'd be really cool if you could. If you could, Jim Ozarski would disappear into there. We'd never see him again. But they're not the kind of folks that we're looking for the FLGS spotlight. If NWS Online was still going, they're not the kind of folks we're looking for this, because they're not a storefront you can walk into. What we're looking for are places you can walk into. And that's what we're after. So you do need to have a Google account in order to submit things for this form, simply because you have to have that Google account in order to upload the photos of the store that we're asking you to send us as a part of this. There's no good way around that. Sorry. The other thing is, we're looking for stores in the US. So if you happen to have a good one in Taiwan or in Germany, sorry, we're going to have to circle back around to you guys at another time. But let's get started talking about the war game friendly stores that we've got here in the US, and let's highlight those. Let's give them some love. Let's let the community find out more about where these great stores are. So when you get a chance to go visit one, if it turns out there's one close to you, or you're traveling and you go near one, let's give them some love. Let's highlight these guys. So that's what we've got. Merle, if you haven't already thrown the link to that in the YouTube chat, please go ahead and do that so folks will be able to click on it and go see the form there. All right. Last summer, we talked some about the Acd Awards that we talked, we're forming the committee. We're working on these things. We're moving it along in a little more concerted effort these days. We talked about it some last summer. We've got a committee that's primarily focused on getting the nominees and the primary selections done. What's different about these awards, and why should these awards matter compared to any others? First of all, we are not getting uber super granular on these awards. We're keeping them very broad, but very limited, so we don't end up having to split a lot of hairs on what things are. We're starting with like 4 categories, and that's it. We're going to keep it pretty basic. One of the key things with this, though, is that the committee are driving the train on this. They're the ones that are figuring out. They're the ones checking eligibility, first of all, make sure we're actually eligible for the awards we're after. The committee's votes are the ones that are going to matter. You know, we've got put together a pretty smart, solid committee to be involved in this. There will be some public input. Essentially, the public will get one of several, will get one vote compared to the committee, but they are one vote compared to our committee of 5 or 6 that we're going to have. So the public will have some input, but they're not driving the train. This is not a pure popularity contest. That's been one of the problems with the CSRs and with some of the awards that we've seen in the past, is that you get a good PR campaign results in the ballot box getting stuffed. And that doesn't necessarily recognize the appropriate quality that we're looking for in the wargaming world. And that's something that we want to try and change. If you disagree with our stuff, that's fine. Like, that's totally cool. These are our opinions, not necessarily yours. But we've cast a pretty wide net on the committee, and they're not all just Dragoons folks that are coming in. We've got some younger folks coming in. We've got some folks from the professional practitioner community that will be engaged. So we've cast a pretty wide net to get people involved in this. We're hoping to announce the winners of the 2021 games at Origins this coming year. That's what we're looking for there. So no, Tolstoy, you can't stuff the ballot box. Look, you know, back at a previous site when we had the Reader's Choice Awards, we never pretended it was anything other than a popularity contest. We reveled in the fact that it was a pure popularity contest, and we told everybody, look, go vote, get your friends to vote. That's fine. This is your award. This is your choice. If you mobilize enough people to vote for it, then you win, and that's cool. Like that was the point of that award. It's not what we're doing here. So definitely want to do things a little differently with this award. All right. That was all the stuff that I had babbled together here. And that's what I've got for us to talk about. At this point, I'm going to kill the slides, and I'm going to let folks throw in some Q&A, and we'll see what you want to talk about. Whatever we've got, let's see what folks want to ask about, and we'll just kind of react to some questions there. How are you supposed to vote for Mystery Wizard? You're not, Tolstoy. That's the point. Thank you for illustrating that for us. What questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, obscene remarks do people have for us? Fred just wants more podcast episodes. That's all Fred's after. Give me podcasts. I know, Fred. You want to stay entertained while you're walking the dog. I got it. So, yeah, Merle, that link you just threw in there that you labeled ACDC survey, that's actually the FLGS one. That's what that is right there. That's what you just grabbed. Which is cool. Yep, there you go. That's your FLGS link. Nobody's got anything they wanted to ask about? Really? That being able to finish ordering Iron Armor. Yeah. How bad is the snow here? It hadn't snowed yet. That's coming in tomorrow morning. I hope it's waiting until tomorrow morning. So that's my personal desire. Yeah, it's supposed to come in tomorrow morning. I was checking to see what other questions folks might be having over on the other screen. I think part of the problem is there's only like 5 of you guys here, isn't there? There's not a lot of y'all watching, which is fine. Right? Not a lot of other questions. That's cool. So here's where we're going for the rest of the ACDC. We've got a bunch of great games still lined up for tomorrow. We got a couple still starting later tonight. 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to hop in the Roundtable channel in Discord, and we're just gonna turn on microphones and cameras and just chat, right? Just have an open bar kind of happy hour for anybody that wants to pop in and just join the conversation. We do these on Mondays with the Dragoons in our Dragoon Discord. That we do them Mondays at 5 in the afternoon. Folks just pop in and have a drink and have a chat and kind of hang out with each other, and we just sort of chill. And it ends up being a bit of a fun time for an hour or so, just at the end of the day. The pandemic messed up our plans a lot, or given it so. Both, as the great meme goes, yes, both. It's given us an opportunity to try some new things that we probably wouldn't have tried as much, but the digital conventions that we never really would have tried to do as much with before. It has messed up some of the live in-person gaming plans that we've tried to put together. There's nothing we can do about that. But it's given us an opportunity to sort of broaden the community quite a bit, because Saturday Night Fights and the use of Tabletop Simulator for distributed gaming has been a real big deal during the pandemic. You can say it's been a game changer, right? And let's go for the obvious cheap pun. But one of the things that really mattered for us is Jim and the guys figured out how to do distributed gaming through Tabletop Simulator long before the plague had hit. So when the plague hit, we all just kind of shrugged and said, all right, we'll keep playing on Saturday nights. And suddenly everybody was looking to us for, hey, how do you do that? And so we were, Jim was able to share a lot of that knowledge and help a lot of people do some more of that. That's been kind of cool. And so that's something that has helped draw some attention to us as a result of that. What do I want to see from the Dragoons? I don't know that we have that kind of time. I would really love to see some more writers come aboard and some long ago, those of you that are sports fans know about the website Grantland that existed for a while over at ESPN. It was Bill Simmons' little pet project. And Grantland had, they didn't put their writers on a word count. You don't need to with the web. For a couple of them, that was a bad thing, because they didn't really worry about concise prose. For a lot of them, that was a good thing, in that they were able to write at length some fantastic articles. It was very reminiscent of how Wargamer.com ran back in the early and mid 2000s, where they had some really smart folks writing really insightful content and not worried about a page count. And I would love for the front page of our site, the article-focused part of our community, to be the Grantland of wargaming. I think it would be fantastic. Guys like Rocky Mountain Navy, who has his own blog and his own Twitter feed, but also writes for us quite frequently, is a great example of that level of writing. He does some great stuff with that level of detail. And that's the kind of stuff that I would love to have more of, because I enjoy reading it, right? That's the kind of stuff that I would have more fun reading and digging into. And so, of course, if it's the kind of stuff that I would enjoy, it's the kind of stuff that I would love to be able to share with the rest of the world. And look, the Dragoons admin team, we've talked about this. We would love to have a lot more of that kind of writing. It's just tough to find, right? It's tough to find people that first of all are good enough to do that writing, are willing to do that writing, and aren't already doing it on their own blog or their own imprint somewhere else. Most of the folks that are good enough to do it and willing to do it are already doing it. And so trying to bring them into the tent is a little more challenging. That said, I've got a lot of experience as an editor, not just in the wargaming world, but along, across the spectrum of writing. I've taught writing at the college level quite a bit. I'm perfectly happy to sit down with folks that are willing and interested and want to improve their craft and help coach them through improving that. If this is something that they want to tackle, I'm more than happy to sit down and work with you to try and get to that point. It's always easier on me when it's some finished product that shows up at the door, but that's rare and that's not normal, and that's okay. We've had some great guest articles over the years from guys like Stigler or Jim Werbineth that have shown up with some guest articles. But again, those are guest articles because those guys have their own channels. Jim Werbineth's got the Line of Departure magazine that's won awards over the years. It's been going for almost 20 years. And it's been going for a long time, and Jim is rightly focused on his own project, and that's great. But I'd love to have more of that level and quality of writing at the Dragoons site. So Tommy, when you're asking what would I like to see, I would love for us to have some better, some more heavy hitters, not necessarily better, but more heavy hitters on the writing side with the Dragoons. That's definitely something that I would love to have. Whether that gets there or not, who knows? One of the other things, we've had a couple of different folks that have designed some game rules that we're working on with the Dragoons. Patrick Mullen has his Triple Letter Campaigns little minis series that he's been looking for some playtesters for in Tabletop Simulator for a while. We've got a couple of other different game designs floating around that the different Dragoons have come up with, and we've had a hard time finding playtesters for those. And it would be really cool if we could get some more playtesters together that we could actually put some of those rules out on our site for people to be able to grab and play and run with. So it would be a lot of fun to have some of that if folks were interested in helping get some of those rule sets over the finish line. It'd be really cool to do that. Tuna, the writing is it is very much a journey, not a destination. I'm saying this is a guy that's helped a lot of people through a lot of writing, coaching, and development over the years. Again, my background is in editing and journalism. My master's degree is in journalism. I've taught this stuff at the college level quite a bit, and helping coach people through that is something that I enjoy. It's a lot of fun for me. I'm happy to help people do that if it's something that they're interested in and willing to do. We've got a variety of templates, a lot of guidance on how to get those things written. If it's something anybody out there watching is interested in, we'd love to have you do it. So, who knows? If we get there, we get there. If we don't, we don't. But I would love to eventually get to that point. So, what else you guys got? So, Tolstoy, you're right. Grantland was a blast. It was a riot. Last time you threw up, there are no more questions. Like 4 other questions came in. It was great. So if you keep throwing it up, maybe people keep asking stuff. So who knows? I guess one of the questions I've got is, what would you guys like to see from the Dragoons? Right? I'm telling you, the kind of stuff we've been doing, a lot of stuff we've done has been reactions to things you guys have indicated you've enjoyed or not. And so we've either reinforced them or we've cut them out of the program. So what are some of the things you guys would like to see and that you enjoy with the Dragoons? So now all of a sudden everybody clams up. More designer interviews. Fred, when you're talking more designer interviews, you talking about the video stuff like Mo and Gary are doing with us as a part of the talk shows? Or are you talking about the little 5-question interview series that we've had going on our website? Because one of those is easier to do than the others. So written interviews are also, right? You send the questions to the interview subject and they write stuff back to you and they do the work for you. It's awesome. It's great. So yeah, thanks, Tolstoy. Both. Love it. Of course, everybody wants both. So, but yeah, I love me some written interviews when I get the time to mess with them. So, yeah, of course, both would be good. Did I ever see the review of Holland 44 in Battles Magazine? I have the first 10, 12 issues of Battles. I'm missing like the last 2, maybe 3. I've got the first bulk of them because I used to write for them. So I got a free copy as being one of the writers for them. But no, I don't remember specifically seeing that one. So I'd have to go look it up. Hit hard on the historical accuracy. I'd love to see more thoughtful reviews. I need writers to write more thoughtful reviews. I need some more folks to write. So if if you get me some writers, we'll do some more insightful pieces there. One of I went looking for it, and unfortunately, like wargamer.com has changed owners like 4 times in the last 10 years or so. And one of them intentionally torpedoed the content archives, in part because previous editor's name was all over them and they had some bad blood between them. And so, if we could kill as much of the archives as possible, then great. We don't have to have that guy's name all over the archives on our website. There was a review of one of the Napoleonic War games that was written. It was written by, it wasn't Bill Wilder. I think it was Bill Trotter wrote this review. And I actually, we pulled the original document that we had chunked up to make the review with, and it clocked in at around 22,000 words for a single review. And I think it was 17 pages, just the way wargamer.com paginated things. It was about 17 pages through there. The actual review of the game started on about page 6. Like the first 5 pages were sort of this, why do we care about the Napoleonic Wars? And this very artful deconstruction of, why does this matter? Why do we spend so much time on the Napoleonic Wars and the scope and the grandeur of this particular conflict, and what makes it such a big deal that we actually care? And that kind of writing was really a lot of fun to read. And Trotter had a pretty inimitable style, and so you were always going to be captivated by it. That you got to page 6 and then realized, oh, hey, now we're just starting the review. Oh, I guess I still got another 11 pages to go to read what he actually thinks about the game. And so that was a lot of fun. That's the kind of cool stuff I would love to see. Interviews on the podcast. Glad you enjoy those. We try to find interesting folks, right? We try to bring some interesting guests together and just have some cool conversations. We've got a couple of Dragoons that we'll bring back on a regular basis, but we try to find folks that we think will make for an interesting chat. Mixed panel of professionals talking about different audience philosophies. We've done that some, probably could do it more. We've done a little bit about on the game design episode in particular. We did one on the differences in designing games for hobby versus professional audiences. Would love to do some of those. And Fred, that whole Mark Herman question, you're going to get that tomorrow on the World War III panel with Mo. Because Mark, Bruce, Fabrizio, and Anthony, and there's somebody else. There's 5 or 6 people on there. Really, all Mo's going to have to do is say go and kind of get out of the way. Let those guys go. It's kind of a blast. Yeah, sorry, Fred. Character limit. More interaction, dude. We're trying, man. We're trying. We are definitely trying to get some more of that in that crossover. Merle is correct. For some of that, go see the NSDM presentation tomorrow. There are guys on the NSDM team that are former practitioners, and the NSDM is an education and hobby focused crew. I know they do some stuff for the pros, and Merle will slap me for trying to imply they don't. I'm not trying to imply that they don't. But they do show up at a lot of hobby game conventions as well as a lot of educational places. So that's definitely one where you're going to see that overlap. So you will definitely see it there. But yeah, can't really share links in the chat here. So I know that's a bit of a challenge for some folks. So Tuna, in terms of some of the boot camp stuff, we've looked into the possibility of some of those different kinds of boot camp videos. Honestly, there's some content creators that are doing some great ones that we can just point you to, that we don't have to do them. Gary's got the OCS boot camp video series that he's gonna be doing. Plus, he did like the one he did last night. They did the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War boot camp at a previous ACDC that went over really well. Nate Gimpy Gamer does some really good how-to videos in terms of teaching folks how to play some different stuff, including some things that aren't even out yet. Like he did a lot of the preview content for the Point Blank card game, showing folks how to play Point Blank before it was even available to order on Kickstarter, so you get a sense of whether or not you like the game enough that you'd want to order it. And so if those guys are already kind of filling that niche, really the best thing to do is just sort of point you to their content rather than try and rip it off and do it ourselves. We get annoyed enough when people are ripping off our good ideas. We don't have to, join that crowd of ripping off somebody else's good ideas if we can help it. So, Fred, for what it's worth, the NSDM presentation at 10 is going to be recorded. And so you will be able to watch it after the fact, if not interact with it. Alternatively, plug in 2 computers and do 2 different things. So that's an option. I'm not saying it's a good option. I'm just saying it's an option. But all right. So look, at this point, this has already dragged on, not dragged, but this has already gone on a little longer than I was necessarily expecting it to. So I think we may call it here shortly. Appreciate everybody's comments and joining in and, pitching in to help keep this moving a little bit. At 9 o'clock, so 1 hour from now, we're going to all congregate in the roundtable area in the Discord. And let's all, grab some libations and sit around and just chat wargaming for a little while. Fred, if you've got 2 for work and 1 for this, you've got the ratio backwards. All right, that's all I'm going to say. It's a Saturday night. You're backwards, right? You've already screwed that up. So flip one of them around and switch from work to fun on one of them, at least one of them. So you're having twice as much fun as you are having to work. I definitely want to thank Merle for handling the production stuff on the back end of this, not just for this one, but for the seminars we had today. Without Merle, those things would not have happened. So that's fantastic. If you've got 5 monitors for personal PCs, you're like 1 monitor short of an evil lair, I think, at that point. So I definitely want to thank Merle for his involvement in this, because without him, a lot of these shows wouldn't have happened. Gary and Mo, we'll thank those guys tomorrow during the happy hour because that's what that's all for. Glad you liked it, Tolstoy. Will the Patriots game be on? Not now, not tonight. That's up to you guys. The Canes game was already earlier today, so that's good. Canes blew out Vancouver, so I'm happy. And it's not on tonight, so I don't have to worry about watching that and hanging out with you guys simultaneously. So cool. Thanks everybody. Let's call it a show here. And 9 o'clock we'll reconvene in Discord, and y'all can pester me with all kinds of comments and questions there without having to worry about it being recorded for posterity. So thanks to Merle, thanks to the audience. Appreciate everything there, guys. And we'll go from there. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.